Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're making beer battered fish and chips. To start this dish we need 4 russet potatoes. This seems like a lot for 2 people, but I will eat all these. Now we're just going to chop these into large matchsticks. I'm going for a wider or thicker chip here because I'm going for more pub style, but if you prefer a thinner French fry, you can definitely cut these thinner. Once you have them chopped up into matchsticks, you want to put them immediately into a bowl of very cold water. This is going to keep your potatoes from browning. It's also going to start to wash away some of that excess starch. Once all of your potatoes are cut up, we're going to bring this over to the sink and we're going to rinse these 2 to 3 times, kind of like when you're rinsing rice. You want to get some of that surface starch off. It's going to give you a better French fry. So you want to wash it just until that water runs clear. Once it's thoroughly rinsed, we can take out our potatoes, transfer them into a clean bowl, and we're going to add enough water to submerge all of our chips. Now, I am going to let these soak in the fridge overnight, but if you wanted to do your fish and chips in one day, I would recommend a minimum of 4 hours, up to 8. So do this in the morning of the day you want to make your fish and chips. It's funny, fish and chips is one of those things that I order anytime I can at a restaurant, but I'll never order takeaway because it's just not the same. So that's why I thought we could do that today. So now it is the next day. I'm taking out all of my potato matchsticks and we need to dry these off. I have a large pot on the stove. I'm heating up about 3 inches worth of vegetable oil to 350 degrees. So we need to dry off these potatoes as thoroughly as possible. Water and oil, as you know, don't mix. It'll pop and it'll splatter. So I'm just resting these on a tea towel. I'm going to take a separate tea towel and just blot off as much of that water as I possibly can because I don't want any oil explosions when I go to fry these the first time. So our oil has reached 350. We're going to start frying these in batches. Now this is just the blanching stage of our French fry. This is going to get a second fry, so we're not going for super crispy here. We just want to cook these potatoes through, and at my thickness of chip here, this should take about 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, I'm going to pull these out and place them on a paper towel lined baking sheet. You can see here there's not a lot of color in these. That's exactly what I want. I want these just to be cooked through. Now you're going to notice that your oil drops as you add in potatoes, so let that just come up to temperature before you add in your second batch. And just take your time with this. This is definitely a weekend recipe. It's not something that's super fast and easy to do on a weeknight, but it is definitely worth it. Now these are all cooked. If you pop one open, you'll see how light and fluffy this is on the inside. We're going to throw this in the freezer while we prepare the rest of our ingredients. For our fish batter, I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add in 1/2 tablespoon of paprika. I'm using hot here, but you can use smoked. 1 tablespoon of baking powder, which is going to add an airiness to our batter, and 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. We want to sift this because we want to get out any of those large lumps. I find though, if I bang the side of my strainer, all those ingredients creep up over the side and they're not getting sifted. So I find it easier to go in with a whisk or a spatula and just run it around the strainer to sift my ingredients. Now, it wouldn't be a beer batter without beer, so I'm going to use a Guinness, which is a dark stout, but use whatever beer you have on hand. So we need about 12 ounces of beer, and it's going to take a minute for that flour to start absorbing all that liquid, so just be patient, go in and whisk everything through. You want to make sure there are no big pockets of flour in your batter. And it is going to look like a hot mess for a couple of seconds, but it will come together. Now that bottle of beer is only 11.5 ounces, so I'm going to go ahead and open a second bottle of beer and just add in about 1/2 cup. Don't worry, we will not let that go to waste later. So we want this to be the consistency of kind of a looser pancake batter. It's okay if there are some lumps in there, you just don't want any big, huge lumps of flour. So eventually it will look like this, and once it does, we can pop this in the fridge while we prep our fish. So I want to season in layers because I think that's very important, especially when you're frying. So I have a little kosher salt here, adding some freshly ground black pepper, just mixing that up. And then I have 3 8-ounce pieces of cod. I've given them a little rinse. I'm going to pat them dry. You can use whatever flaky white fish you can find. But cod is a really good choice for this, as well as haddock. Now I'm going to cut these directly in half. So we have strips of 1-inch by 5-inch pieces of fish. Because once we coat that all in our batter, this is going to be a pretty healthy serving. Now we want to season generously. This is a flaky, meaty fish, so it can take a lot of seasoning. So this is 1/4 cup of cornstarch. I'm just lightly dredging our fish in it, and then we're going to place it on a rack-lined baking sheet. This is going to help lock in the moisture of the fish, as well as help that batter stick when we go to dip it in our batter and fry it. And we're just going to set this aside until we're ready to fry our fish, but we're going to do a second fry on our French fries first, just so there's no fish flavor in our fries. So I've let the oil come up to 375 at this point. I'm also preheating the oven to 200 degrees so I can keep the French fries warm as they fry. So I'm actually going to do the second fry. I'm going to add all of the fries in at once because they're cooked. We just want to get them to a nice golden brown. And just remember that these are going to keep cooking as you pull them out of the hot oil as well. There's crossover cooking. So once they get to a color that you like, start pulling them out and just put them on a cooling rack over a paper towel lined baking sheet. That just helps with cleanup. Once all your fries are out, we're going to salt these immediately. You want to salt while your fries are still hot. If you waited, the salt will just bounce off and you just lose all of that seasoning. We're going to stick these in our oven and keep them warm while we fry our fish. So I've taken the batter out of the refrigerator, giving this another quick little whisk, just in case anything has moved to the bottom. We want to incorporate all that batter. Now we're going in, dipping in our fish, shaking off any of the excess. And we're going to fry our fish for about 7 to 8 minutes. And you want to flip it once during the process. You just want this to get to be a beautiful golden brown. You want that fish to be cooked thoroughly. And my pot is big enough, I actually could add all 6 pieces in, so that was perfect. If you have a smaller pot, just do this in batches as well. This is looking beautiful and golden. So after about 7 to 8 minutes, I'm taking this out and I'm just popping this on some paper towels to just catch any of that excess oil. And I can tell from my tongs that the fish is super crispy. Going in with a little kosher salt and salting it as soon as it comes out of that oil. Now to plate, I think 2 pieces is a pretty good serving. A nice little handful of our chips as well. A couple of wedges of lemon. And you really should eat this with malt vinegar. It brings out the flavor of the fish. And remember that second bottle we opened? We're not going to let that go to waste. If you're of drinking age, this is a good accompaniment to your fish and chips. So let's go ahead and give this a taste. Just adding a little malt vinegar. This is really crispy. Look at all that steam. This is cooked perfectly. The Guinness added a bitterness to the batter, which is so nice because it cuts through that beautiful flaky fish. The fish is cooked perfectly. It's still very moist. It's tender. It's cooked through. The malt vinegar just adds another dimension of flavor. This is exactly what I was craving. And like I said before, it just hits differently when you order it takeaway because it doesn't get that nice crispy. It's just not the same. The chips are cooked through. They are satisfying and delicious, but This is perfect for a long weekend. So cheers to you. But here it is, my version of beer battered fish and chips. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you loved it, subscribe and hit that notification bell because I put out new videos every Thursday. Thank you again, and until next time, happy cooking. Is this hot enough yet? Am I being impatient? Being a little impatient. 5 more minutes.